My mom left the entire inheritance to my golden child sister. A year later, she regretted it. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. My name is Claire Morrison. I'm 37 years old, and this is the story of how my mother gave everything she had to my golden child sister, and why, a year later, she wished she hadn't. I've been sitting here for hours, staring at my phone, wondering if I should write this. But I need to get it out. Maybe someone will understand. Maybe someone has been where I am. My mother called me yesterday. After 2 years of silence, she called. "Claire," she said, and her voice was smaller than I remembered. Fragile. "I need to talk to you." I almost hung up. God, I wanted to. But something in her tone made me pause, made me listen to the tremor that hadn't been there before. "I was wrong," she whispered. "About everything. About you. Let me start from the beginning, because the ending doesn't make sense without it. I was 7 when I first understood I was invisible. It was Emma's 5th birthday party. My sister's golden curls catching the afternoon light as she blew out her candles, her pink dress pristine despite a day of playing. I sat at the corner of the table in my hand-me-down jeans. Ironically, they had been Emma's before she outgrew them, though she was 2 years younger, watching our mother fuss over every detail. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Mom cooed, her camera clicking constantly. "Oh, look at that smile." "You're going to be a model. I just know it." I had helped bake that cake the night before. I'd measured flour while Mom stirred, carefully cracked eggs while she mixed. But as I watched Emma's performance, I realized I might as well have been the kitchen counter, useful when needed, forgotten when not. "Claire, move out of the way, honey. You're blocking Emma in the photo." I shifted to the side, watching through the viewfinder of yet another camera angle, as my sister basked in the golden hour light that seemed to follow her everywhere. Even then, at 7, I was learning the choreography of my own invisibility. That night, after the guests had gone home and Emma was tucked safely in bed with her new pile of presents, I found Mom in the kitchen cleaning up. "Did you see how happy Emma was today?" she said, not looking up from the dishes. "She's just so special, so delicate. She needs extra care, you know." I nodded, though she wasn't looking at me to see it. I was already learning that agreeing was easier than explaining how I felt. Already learning that my feelings weren't really part of the equation. "You're lucky to have such a sweet sister," Mom continued. "You'll need to look out for her when you're older. She's not as strong as you are." Strong. Even at 7, I understood this wasn't a compliment. Strong meant I could handle things. Strong meant I didn't need the soft words, the gentle touches, the careful attention. Strong meant I was fine on my own. I was 7 years old, and I was already learning to be fine on my own. Middle school was worse. That's when Emma's talent emerged. She could sing, I'll give her that. Not extraordinarily, not in any way that would make her famous, but prettily. The kind of voice that sounds sweet in a school auditorium and makes parents tear up with pride. Mom threw herself into Emma's musical career with the fervor of a stage mother in a movie. Voice lessons, piano lessons, dance classes. Weekend competitions in neighboring towns where Emma would win third-place ribbons and Mom would beam like she'd discovered the next Whitney Houston. "Claire, you'll have to walk home from school today. Emma has rehearsal." "Claire, we can't afford new school clothes for both of you this year. Emma needs a competition dress." "Claire, keep it down up there. Emma's practicing." I learned to do my homework by the light of a desk lamp with the door closed, so my pencil scratches wouldn't disturb the scales floating up from the living room. I learned to make my own dinner when Mom was driving Emma to yet another lesson. I learned to celebrate my own small victories, honor roll, science fair ribbons, the occasional compliment from a teacher, in the quiet of my room where no one would see. When I was 13, I won the regional spelling bee. I came home with a trophy and a $50 prize, breathless with excitement, ready to finally have my moment. Mom was on the phone with Emma's voice teacher, discussing whether they should invest in a more expensive piano. She glanced at my trophy, smiled vaguely, and said, "That's nice, honey," before turning back to her conversation about Emma's extraordinary potential. I put the trophy on my dresser next to my other small accomplishments, perfect attendance certificates, academic achievement awards, things that felt important when I earned them and invisible once I brought them home. My room became a museum of my own unwitnessed success. That night, I heard Mom on the phone with my aunt. "Oh, you know Claire. She's so self-sufficient, never needs anything from me. She just handles everything herself. It's wonderful, really. I can focus on Emma, who needs so much more guidance." Self-sufficient, another word that sounded like praise but felt like abandonment. High school was when I stopped expecting things to be different. Emma made varsity choir as a sophomore, not unusual since she'd been taking voice lessons for years while other kids were just figuring out they could carry a tune. But you'd have thought she'd been accepted to Juilliard from the way Mom carried on. "My Emma is going to be a star," she'd tell anyone who would listen at the grocery store, at parent-teacher conferences, at church. "She has such a gift." I made varsity debate team as a freshman. I won regional competitions, placed at state level, earned a partial scholarship to the Summer Debate Institute at Northwestern. I paid for it myself with money from my part-time job at the library. Mom signed the permission slip without reading it. But Emma getting a solo in the spring concert? That required a Facebook post with professional photos, a new dress, and a celebration dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. I remember sitting in that restaurant, watching Mom hang on Emma's every word about vocal warm-ups and stage fright, and feeling something crystallize inside me. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. I was 16 years old, and I finally understood the rules of our family. Emma was the star, Mom was the audience, and I was the stagehand, essential for making everything work, but never meant to be seen. I could work with those rules. I'd been working with them my whole life. Senior year, I applied to colleges on my own, filled out financial aid forms, wrote essays, requested transcripts. Mom was too busy with Emma's regional choir auditions to help, and honestly, I preferred it that way. I'd gotten good at doing things myself. I got into 7 schools, full ride to state for academics, partial scholarships to 3 others. The day I got my acceptance to state, I found Mom in the kitchen making Emma's favorite cookies for a choir fundraiser. "Mom, I got in," I said, waving the letter. "Full scholarship." She glanced up from the cookie dough. "Got in where?" "College, State University. Remember? I told you I applied." "Oh." She turned back to the cookies. "That's wonderful, honey. You've always been so good with school." Always been so good with school. Like it was a quirky hobby instead of the thing that was going to change my life. Emma bounded into the kitchen then, home from yet another voice lesson, and launched into a 15-minute monologue about a boy in choir who maybe possibly might have been flirting with her. Mom hung on every word, asked follow-up questions, offered advice about boys and dating and navigating teenage romance. I went to my room with my acceptance letter and closed the door. That night, I heard them talking in the living room. "Claire's so independent," Mom was saying. "Sometimes I worry I don't know what's going on in her head. She just handles everything herself." "So maybe because she has to," Emma said, and for a moment I thought my sister understood. "You're always busy with my stuff." "Emma, sweetie, you know you need more guidance. You're sensitive. Claire's always been tougher." There it was again. Tougher, stronger, independent. All the words that meant I didn't need what other daughters got from their mothers. I went to college and thrived in a way that felt like finally being able to breathe. No one there knew I was supposed to be invisible. Professors noticed my work, classmates sought out my opinions, friends valued my advice. I discovered I was funny when I didn't have to compete for airtime. I was interesting when someone was actually listening. I majored in business with a minor in psychology. Practical choices that made sense for someone who'd learned early how to read a room and adapt to survive. I got internships, networked, graduated summa cum laude with a job lined up at a marketing firm in the city. Emma went to a small liberal arts college on her partial choir scholarship and mom's savings account. She changed majors 3 times: music, then communications, then art history. She was finding herself, which apparently required a lot of financial support and emotional hand-holding. I sent a graduation announcement to Mom. She sent back a card with $20 in it and a note that said, "Proud of you. Love, Mom." The same card she'd given me for every birthday since I turned 16. Emma's graduation was a 3-day event. Mom took time off work, drove 6 hours to the ceremony, hosted a dinner party, posted approximately 47 photos on social media with captions about her beautiful, talented daughter starting her journey into the world. I found out about it through Facebook. My 20s were the best years I'd had up to that point. I worked hard, got promoted, moved into my own apartment in a trendy neighborhood. I dated, made friends, traveled on weekends. I built a life that had nothing to do with being invisible. Emma moved back home after college. She was going to pursue her music career, which apparently required living rent-free while she worked part-time at a boutique and occasionally sang at local coffee shops. Mom called me once a month, always with the same script. "How's work?" "That's nice, honey. Let me tell you about Emma." And then she'd launch into updates about Emma's latest audition, her new boyfriend, her struggles with finding her place in the world. Mom worried about Emma constantly. Was she eating enough? Was she getting enough sleep? Was she happy? She never asked if I was happy. When I got engaged to David, I called Mom from the restaurant where he'd proposed, my hands still shaking from excitement and champagne. "That's wonderful, Claire," she said. "Have you set a date?" "Oh, I hope it doesn't conflict with Emma's showcase in June." When Emma got engaged 6 months later, to a guy she'd been dating for 2 months, Mom cried with joy. Literally cried. I could hear her on the phone telling her sister about Emma's fairy tale romance and how she'd never seen her daughter so happy. I had a small wedding, elegant, intimate, exactly what David and I wanted. Mom came, wore navy blue, smiled in photos. She gave a sweet toast about how proud she was of the woman I'd become. Emma's wedding was a production. 8 bridesmaids, a string quartet, a reception at the country club. Mom planned it like she was organizing a royal wedding, stressed for months about every detail, remortgaged the house to pay for it. At the reception, during the mother-daughter dance, I watched Mom gaze at Emma like she was the most precious thing in the world. The DJ played "You'll Be in My Heart," and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was beautiful, objectively. Emma looked radiant, Mom looked proud, and everyone cooed about what a special relationship they had. I danced with David and felt grateful for the life we'd built together. A life where I was seen, valued, loved for who I was instead of what I could handle on my own. Dad died when I was 32. Heart attack at work, sudden and devastating. It was the first time I saw my family come apart. Emma fell into pieces. The kind of dramatic, all-consuming grief that requires constant care and attention. She moved back in with Mom temporarily while she processed her loss. She couldn't work, couldn't function, needed daily phone calls and weekly therapy sessions, and constant reassurance that everything would be okay. Mom threw herself into caring for Emma with the same intensity she'd always had, as if keeping Emma intact would somehow bring Dad back. I grieved quietly, took time off work for the funeral, helped plan the service, wrote the obituary that would run in 3 newspapers. I cleaned out Dad's office, donated his clothes, handled the insurance paperwork. I did what needed to be done because someone had to do it, and I'd always been the one who did what needed to be done. "Thank God for you, Claire," Mom said one evening as I finished sorting through Dad's papers. "I don't know what we'd do without you. You're handling this so well." Handling it so well, as if grief was another task to be managed efficiently. Emma was still in the living room, curled up on the couch with a box of tissues, letting Mom bring her tea and toast cut into triangles. She'd been there for 3 hours, crying and reminiscing about Dad's terrible jokes and how he used to call her his little songbird. Dad used to call me Kiddo, just Kiddo. Not poetic, not special, but it was ours. I missed it so much I could barely breathe some days, but I missed it quietly, in the privacy of my own apartment, where my grief wouldn't need managing. The years after Dad's death settled into a familiar pattern. Emma stayed with Mom, ostensibly, while she got back on her feet, but months turned into years. Her marriage had fallen apart during her grief spiral. Her husband apparently wasn't equipped to handle the level of emotional support she required. Mom enabled it all with the devotion of a saint. Emma was fragile, going through a difficult time, finding her way. She needed the safety net of home, the comfort of Mom's unconditional love, the freedom to figure out her next chapter without the pressure of adult responsibilities. I called every Sunday, visited for major holidays, sent birthday cards and Christmas presents. I was the dutiful daughter from a distance, checking the boxes of family obligation while building my own life. David and I bought a house. I got promoted to regional manager. We traveled to Europe, took weekend trips to wine country, hosted dinner parties with friends who became our chosen family. We talked about having kids, maybe adopting, creating the kind of warm, supportive home neither of us had grown up in. Emma worked sporadically, a few months at a yoga studio, a brief stint at an art gallery, occasional gigs singing at weddings. Nothing that paid enough to support herself, but Mom never seemed to worry about Emma's finances. "She's artistic," Mom would explain when I subtly suggested that maybe it was time for Emma to consider a more stable career. Creative people march to their own drummer. When I was 36, Mom was diagnosed with diabetes. Not life-threatening, but it required lifestyle changes, medication, regular monitoring. I offered to help research doctors, drive her to appointments, anything she needed. "Oh, don't worry about me, honey," she said. "Emma's been such a help. She drives me everywhere, keeps track of my medications, makes sure I'm eating right. I don't know what I'd do without her." Emma, who had never held down a job for more than 6 months, was apparently the perfect caregiver. Emma, who forgot her own birthday half the time, was managing Mom's medical schedule. I felt a familiar pang, not quite jealousy, more like recognition. Even Mom's illness was another opportunity for Emma to be the precious, needed one. Mom died on a Tuesday in March. I got the call from Emma, who was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She didn't wake up. I went to check on her and she was just... I drove straight to the house, found Emma collapsed in the kitchen with neighbors and paramedics and the chaos of sudden death. I held my sister while she cried, made the phone calls that needed to be made, answered the questions that needed answering. We planned the funeral together, though together meant I handled logistics while Emma handled emotions. I wrote the eulogy, chose the flowers, coordinated with the church. Emma picked out Mom's dress and sobbed through every decision. At the service, person after person talked about what a devoted mother Mom had been, how much she'd loved her daughters, how proud she was of both of us. The pastor mentioned my success, my stability, how I'd made my mother so proud by becoming such a capable, independent woman. Capable. Independent. Even in death, Mom's love for me was defined by what I didn't need from her. Emma sang at the service, "Amazing Grace," in her still pretty voice, tears streaming down her face. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. People kept telling her how beautiful it was, how Mom would have loved it, how special it was that she could honor her mother that way. I sat in the front pew and felt proud of my sister for finding a way to say goodbye that felt meaningful to her. I also felt invisible in the way that had become so familiar it was almost comforting. The will reading was the following Friday. I expected it to be straightforward. Mom hadn't been wealthy, but she owned the house, had some savings, the usual modest estate of a middle-class widow. What I didn't expect was for everything to go to Emma. The house, the savings account, the small investment portfolio Dad had left, even Mom's jewelry. All of it went to my younger sister, the woman who hadn't paid rent in 5 years, who had never held a steady job, who needed help managing her own checkbook. I got a letter, a single page, handwritten in Mom's careful script. My dear Claire, I know you'll be surprised by my will, but I hope you'll understand. Emma needs this security in a way that you never have. You've always been so strong, so capable of taking care of yourself. I know you'll be fine no matter what life brings you. Emma is more fragile, more in need of protection. The house and the money will give her the stability she needs to find her way in the world. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Your independence has always been your greatest strength. Love always, Mom. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Then I folded it carefully, put it in my purse, and congratulated Emma on her inheritance. She was crying again, overwhelmed by the responsibility, worried about managing everything on her own. The lawyer was walking her through the paperwork while she dabbed at her eyes with tissues. I don't know how to handle all this, she kept saying. What if I mess it up? What if I can't take care of everything the way Mom did? I found myself reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. You'll figure it out, I said, and meant it. Mom believed in you. I drove home to David, who took one look at my face and opened a bottle of wine. We sat on our back patio as I told him about the will, about the letter, about the strange absence of surprise I felt. Are you angry? He asked. I considered it. No, I said finally. I'm tired. I'm tired of expecting something different. You could contest it. I could, but honestly, Emma needs it more than I do, and maybe Mom was right about that much. David raised an eyebrow. Your mother left a $250,000 estate to someone who's never been financially responsible in her life, and you think that's the right call? I think it's the call Mom made, and I think fighting it would just give me more of what I've always gotten from that family. Drama, disappointment, and a reminder that I'm the one expected to be reasonable. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset paint our small backyard golden. Want to know the crazy part? I said eventually. I'm actually relieved. For the first time in my life, I don't have to wonder if I'm enough. I don't have to hope that someday Mom will see me the way she sees Emma. It's over. I know exactly where I stand, and I can stop waiting for something that was never going to happen. The first few months after Mom's death, Emma called me constantly. She was drowning in responsibilities she'd never had to handle. Property taxes, insurance, home maintenance, investment decisions. I helped when she asked, explained what I could, referred her to professionals when I couldn't. I don't understand how Mom made this look so easy, she said during one of our calls. She'd discovered that the roof needed repairs that would cost $8,000, and she was panicking about how to pay for it. She didn't make it look easy, I said gently. She just handled it without talking about it. That's what managing a household looks like. But I'm not good at this stuff. I don't know how to research contractors or negotiate prices or any of it. Emma, you're 34. You can learn. Google exists. The internet has instructions for everything. You make it sound so simple. Because it is simple. It's just not easy. There's a difference. When she was quiet for a moment. I think Mom thought I couldn't handle things like this. I think Mom loved you too much to let you try. By the 6-month mark, Emma had burned through almost half of the savings account. Home repairs, yes, but also a new car. Her old one was embarrassing. A vacation to clear her head. Designer clothes for job interviews that never seemed to pan out. Expensive dinners with friends who were helping her network. She'd also started dating a guy named Marcus, who had strong opinions about how she should invest her inheritance. He thought she should start a boutique business, maybe buy some rental properties, really make the money work for her. He's so smart about financial stuff, Emma gushed during one of our calls. He went to business school. I bit my tongue and asked carefully neutral questions. Did Marcus have business experience? How long had they been dating? Had she talked to a financial advisor about any major decisions? Claire, you worry too much. Marcus knows what he's talking about. Besides, I can't just let the money sit there earning nothing. Actually, Mom's investment portfolio was earning about 6% annually. That's not nothing. But Marcus says, Emma, please just be careful. Talk to a professional before you make any big moves. She laughed, the way she'd laughed as a teenager when I tried to give her advice. You sound just like Mom sometimes, always so serious about everything. A year after Mom's death, Emma called me crying. Marcus had vanished along with $50,000 she'd loaned him for his sure-thing business opportunity. The boutique she'd invested in had failed within 3 months. The rental property she'd bought needed more work than she'd anticipated and wasn't generating the income Marcus had promised. I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I've made such a mess of everything. Mom trusted me with this, and I've ruined it all. I drove over to find her surrounded by financial documents she didn't understand, bills she couldn't pay, and the crushing weight of consequences she'd never had to face before. We spent the weekend going through everything. The savings account was nearly empty. The investment portfolio had been cashed out to fund various schemes. She owed money to contractors, to credit card companies, to friends who'd loaned her cash. The house was all she had left, and she couldn't afford the property taxes. I have to sell it, she said, staring at the papers spread across Mom's dining room table. I have to sell Mom's house. Maybe that's not the worst thing, I said gently. This place is too big for you anyway, and it's expensive to maintain. You could get a smaller place, something more manageable. But it's Mom's house, it's where we grew up. It's where you grew up. I moved out at 18, remember? This house stopped being home for me a long time ago. She looked at me with surprise, as if she'd never considered that I might have different feelings about our childhood home than she did. I helped Emma sell the house, helped her find a decent apartment, helped her create a budget that might actually work if she stuck to it. Helped her find a job at a marketing firm downtown, not glamorous work, but steady and with benefits. I don't understand how you learned all this stuff, she said as we finished moving her into her new place. Managing money, finding jobs, handling responsibilities. When did you figure it out? When I had to, I said. Same as everyone else. But I feel like I'm starting from scratch at 34. Like everyone else learned this stuff years ago, and I missed the class. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and for the first time saw past the golden curls and the easy smile to the lost woman underneath. She'd never had to learn these skills because Mom had never let her fail. Every time Emma had stumbled, Mom had been there to catch her, smooth the way, fix whatever was broken. It had felt like love, that constant protection. It had looked like favoritism from where I was standing. But maybe it had been something else entirely. Maybe it had been fear. Emma, I said carefully, what did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, really want, not what Mom wanted for you. She was quiet for so long, I thought she wasn't going to answer. I don't know, she said finally. I honestly don't know. Mom always had such big dreams for my music. And then when that didn't work out, she just wanted me to be happy and safe. But I never had to figure out what I wanted, because she wanted so much for me. And now? Now I'm 34, and I feel like I'm meeting myself for the first time. That conversation happened on a Saturday in March, almost exactly 2 years after Mom died. Emma started therapy the following week. She threw herself into her new job with a determination that surprised both of us. She stopped dating entirely, said she needed to figure out who she was before she tried to be part of a couple. Meanwhile, I was having the best year of my professional life. The marketing firm where I'd been working had been acquired by a larger company, and I'd been offered a position heading up their new West Coast division. David and I had decided to take the leap, move to Portland, start fresh in a city we'd fallen in love with during a vacation. We sold our house, bought a gorgeous craftsman bungalow with a garden and a view of Mount Hood. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, working with clients I respected, managing a team that actually listened to my ideas. For the first time in my life, I felt successful in a way that had nothing to do with being strong or independent or capable of handling things on my own. I felt valued for my mind, my creativity, my leadership. I felt seen. Emma and I talked every few weeks. She was doing better, paying her bills, building an emergency fund, even dating someone new, a teacher she'd met at a coffee shop, someone who had his own life and didn't need her money. She sounded different on the phone, more grounded, more sure of herself. "I think I'm finally growing up," she said during one of our calls. "I know that sounds ridiculous at 35, but I feel like I'm just now learning how to be an adult." "Better late than never," I said, and meant it. "Claire, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Were you angry all those years when she treated us so differently? Were you angry at me?" I considered my answer carefully. "Sometimes, but mostly I was angry at the situation, not at you. You didn't ask to be treated like you were made of glass any more than I asked to be treated like I was made of steel. I think I would have been angry. I think you would have been different if you'd had to be." David and I had been in Portland for 6 months when Mom called. I almost didn't answer. The number showed up as Catherine Morrison, Mom's full name, the way she'd programmed it into her phone before she died. But Mom had been dead for 2.5 years. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Claire." The voice was older, frailer than I remembered, but unmistakably hers. "It's Mom." I sat down hard on our kitchen stool, staring out at the garden where David was planting winter vegetables. "Mom." It wasn't a question. Somehow, impossibly, I knew it was her. "I know this is a shock. I know you thought I was dead. You are dead. We had a funeral. I spoke at your funeral. I was dying. The diabetes was getting worse, and I was tired, and I couldn't handle watching Emma struggle anymore. I thought if I was gone, if she inherited everything, she'd finally have the security she needed." "So you faked your own death." My voice sounded flat, emotionless, even to me. "I went to live with my sister Margaret in Arizona. You remember Margaret. I told everyone I was dead so Emma would inherit, so she'd be taken care of." "Margaret?" Mom's sister who lived in Phoenix and sent Christmas cards with desert landscapes on them. Mom had been visiting Margaret for 2 weeks every winter for as long as I could remember. "Where are you now?" "I'm back. I'm in town. Margaret died last month, and I came back to see how Emma was doing." Of course she came back to check on Emma. Not to see me, not to apologize for putting us through the grief of losing her, to check on Emma. "She's fine," I said. "She's doing really well, actually." There was a long pause. "I heard she lost the house." "She sold the house and learned how to manage her own life in the process." "Claire, I need to see you. I need to explain." "No." The word came out harder than I'd intended. "No, you don't get to explain. You don't get to come back from the dead and want to have a conversation about your choices. Please, I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I stood up, pacing to the window where David was carefully spacing seedlings in neat rows. "You faked your death. You put your daughters through the trauma of losing their mother so you could give one of them money she wasn't ready to handle. You made me plan your funeral. I wrote your eulogy, Mom. I stood in front of a room full of people and talked about what a wonderful mother you were." "You are wonderful," she whispered. "You're so strong, Claire. You always have been. You didn't need me the way Emma did." There it was. Even now, even in this impossible conversation, she was still explaining why I hadn't deserved the same love, the same attention, the same care. "I was a child," I said. "I was a little girl who needed her mother, and instead of giving me what I needed, you decided I didn't need it. I was trying to protect you both." Emma was so sensitive, so fragile. Emma was enabled. There's a difference. And you know what? She figured it out. She learned how to take care of herself when she had to, just like I did. "I heard about your new job, your house. I'm proud of you." "Don't!" The word came out like a slap. "Don't you dare tell me you're proud of me now. You had 37 years to be proud of me while I was actually in your life." David had looked up from his planting and was watching me through the window with concern. I waved him off, turned away from his worried gaze. "I made mistakes with you," Mom said, and her voice was smaller now, older. "I see that now. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now that I was wrong." "What changed your mind?" "Living with Margaret. She asked about you constantly, your job, your marriage, your life. She couldn't understand why I never talked about you the way I talked about Emma. She said it sounded like I had 2 daughters but only loved one of them. I closed my eyes, felt tears I hadn't expected starting to build. Margaret was right, wasn't she? Mom continued. I did love you both, but I loved you differently. I loved Emma like she was a beautiful, breakable thing that needed protecting, and I loved you like you were a mountain, strong and permanent and able to weather anything. Mountains erode, Mom. With enough pressure, over enough time, even mountains break down. Are you broken down? I looked around the kitchen of the house David and I had bought together, thought about the job that challenged and fulfilled me, the friends who sought out my company, the husband who loved me for exactly who I was. No, I said, but not because of anything you did. I built a good life in spite of you, not because of you. The silence stretched between us, filled with 37 years of misunderstandings and missed connections. I'm sick, she said finally. Really sick this time. The diabetes got worse in Arizona, and now there are complications. Margaret's death. It made me realize I might not have much time left. I'm sorry you're sick. And I was, genuinely. Whatever else was true, I didn't want my mother to suffer. I want to see you. I want to try to make things right. You can't make 37 years right in a conversation, Mom. I know, but I want to try. I stared out at David, who was now watering the new seedlings with careful attention. He'd grown up with parents who noticed his achievements, supported his dreams, loved him in ways that were obvious and uncomplicated. He couldn't quite understand my relationship with my family, but he'd never tried to fix it or minimize it. He'd just loved me through it. I'll think about it, I said finally. Thank you. But Mom? If I do this, if I agree to see you, it's not going to be like one of your phone calls where you talk about Emma for an hour and ask me how work is going. If we're going to talk, we're really going to talk. I understand. And I'm not going to pretend that everything is fine just because you're sick. I'm not going to make this easier for you. I wouldn't expect you to. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, watching David finish his planting and come inside to wash his hands at the sink. That sounded intense, he said, drying his hands on the kitchen towel. My mother isn't dead. He paused, towel halfway to the hook. I'm sorry, what? My mother, who we buried 2.5 years ago. She just called me. She's not dead. David sat down across from me with the careful movements of someone trying not to spook a wild animal. Okay, do you want to explain that? So I did. I told him about the fake death, about Margaret in Arizona, about Mom coming back to check on Emma. I told him about the conversation, about her sudden realization that she'd treated her daughters differently, about her wanting to make things right. Jesus, Claire. David ran his hands through his hair. I don't even know what that is. It's very Mom, I said. Dramatic gesture, unintended consequences, genuine surprise when it doesn't turn out the way she planned. Are you going to see her? I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me wants to finally have the conversation we should have had when I was 7. And the other part? The other part wants to tell her that she made her choice when she decided to fake her own death, rather than just have an honest conversation with her daughters about money. David reached across the table and took my hand. What would 7-year-old Claire want? I thought about that little girl sitting at the corner of the table at Emma's birthday party, moving out of the way so she wouldn't block the photo. She'd want her mom to see her, I said. She'd want to matter enough for a real conversation. And 37-year-old Claire? She's tired of wanting things from people who aren't capable of giving them. But she's also strong enough to handle whatever happens if she tries. I looked at my husband, this man who'd spent 8 years showing me what it felt like to be someone's first choice, to be loved without having to earn it or prove I deserved it. When did you get so wise? I married a woman who's been figuring out complicated family dynamics her whole life. I learned from the expert. I called Emma first. If I was going to see Mom, Emma needed to know she was alive. She's what? Emma's voice went up an octave. Claire, that's impossible. We buried her. I sang at her funeral. I know. I was there. But she just called me, and it's definitely her. This is insane. People don't just fake their own deaths. Apparently they do. She's been living with Aunt Margaret in Arizona. Emma was quiet for a long moment. She came back to check on me, didn't she? How did you know? Because it's Mom. Because even faking her own death was about protecting me from something. There was something different in Emma's voice, a kind of clarity that hadn't been there 2 years ago. Are you going to see her? Emma asked. I'm thinking about it. Are you? I don't know. I'm angry, Claire. I'm really angry. Do you know what the last 2 years have been like for me? Learning to live without her, learning to take care of myself, going through all that grief, and she was just alive this whole time? I know. And she came back to check on me because she assumed I'd screwed everything up. Did you tell her you screwed everything up? Emma laughed, but it wasn't entirely happy. No, I told her you'd talk to her, that I was doing well. I didn't give her details. Emma, you are doing well. You've built a life for yourself. You have a job you're good at, you're financially stable, you're in a healthy relationship. The fact that it took losing everything to get there doesn't diminish what you've accomplished. I keep thinking about what would have happened if she hadn't faked her death. If she'd just stayed and kept enabling me. I'd probably still be living in that house, still letting her take care of everything, still dating guys like Marcus. Maybe. I think she did me a favor in the most messed up way possible. I drove back to our old town the following Saturday. I'd told Mom I'd meet her at the coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where we could talk without the weight of family history pressing down on us. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her back to the wall. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older than her 73 years, fragile in a way that seemed genuine rather than performed. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted her coffee cup. Claire. She stood when she saw me, as if she wasn't sure whether to hug me or shake my hand. I sat down across from her without touching her. Mom, you look good. Happy. I am happy. She nodded, studying my face like she was trying to memorize it. I didn't know if you'd come. I didn't know if I would either. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 women who shared DNA and a complicated history and not much else. I owe you an apology, she said finally. Several apologies. Okay. I was wrong about you. About what you needed from me. I thought because you were so capable, so self-sufficient, that you didn't need the same kind of attention Emma did. I was self-sufficient because I had to be. Children aren't born knowing how to take care of themselves, Mom. They learn because someone teaches them or because no one helps them and they figure it out to survive. I know that now. Do you? Because even in our phone call yesterday, you were still explaining why Emma needed more, still justifying why I got less. Mom's hands tightened around her coffee cup. You're right, it's hard to see past 30 years of thinking I was protecting both of you. How was ignoring me protecting me? I thought if I didn't make a big deal about your accomplishments, you wouldn't become arrogant. If I didn't coddle you, you'd stay strong. If I didn't give you too much attention, you wouldn't become dependent on it. I stared at her. That's the most backwards parenting logic I've ever heard. I was raised by a mother who praised me constantly, and then I couldn't handle it when the real world didn't think I was special. I didn't want that for you. So instead, you raised me to think I wasn't special at all. No, She stopped, closed her eyes. Yes, that's exactly what I did. And Emma? Emma seemed so fragile. She cried easily, got overwhelmed by things that didn't bother you. I thought she needed more support. She seemed fragile because you treated her like she was fragile. She got overwhelmed because you never let her practice handling things on her own. Mom was quiet for a long time, staring into her coffee. I've had 2 years to think about this, she said finally. Living with Margaret, watching her talk about her own daughters, seeing how differently she spoke about them. Margaret treated both her girls like they were capable and precious at the same time. like they deserved both support and independence. What a concept. Don't be cruel, Claire. I know I deserve it, but please don't be cruel. I looked at this woman who had shaped so much of my childhood, who had taught me to expect so little from the people who were supposed to love me most. I'm not trying to be cruel, I said. I'm trying to be honest. For the first time in my life, I'm trying to have an honest conversation with my mother. What do you want me to say? I want you to say that you see me. I want you to acknowledge that I was a little girl who needed her mother's love and approval and attention, and instead of getting it, I learned to live without it. I see you. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I see you now, and I'm so sorry it took me this long. What do you see? She looked up at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in my memory, I felt like she was seeing past her own assumptions about who I was supposed to be. I see a woman who built a beautiful life, despite having a mother who failed her in fundamental ways. I see someone who learned to be strong because she had to, but who deserved to be protected sometimes too. I see... She paused, tears starting to fall. I see a daughter I should have celebrated instead of taking for granted. It was what I'd wanted to hear for 37 years, and hearing it felt both healing and hollow. Too little, too late, but still something. I'm proud of you, she continued. I should have told you that every day. I should have made sure you knew how remarkable you are. I know how remarkable I am, I said. I figured it out on my own. I know you did, and I'm sorry you had to. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about the decision to fake her death, about the months of planning, about the guilt that had eaten at her when she realized how it had affected both of us. I thought Emma would be secure, she said. I thought she'd use the money wisely, maybe get some therapy, figure out what she wanted to do with her life. Instead, she lost most of it and had to learn the hard way how to be an adult. How is she, really? I told her about Emma's job, her apartment, her new relationship. I told her about therapy, about Emma's growing confidence, about the way she'd taken responsibility for her mistakes instead of expecting someone else to fix them. She's becoming the person she was always capable of being, I said. She just needed to not have anyone catching her when she fell. And you? What about me? How are you? Not just successful, not just fine. How are you? It was such a simple question, and I couldn't remember the last time she'd asked it. I'm happy, I said. I have a husband who loves me, work that fulfills me, friends who value me. I built a life where I'm not invisible. Were you invisible? In our family? Mom, you once introduced me at a parent-teacher conference as Emma's older sister. The teacher had to correct you and remind you of my name. She winced. I don't remember that. I do. I remember thinking you didn't need as much from me. I remember being grateful that you were so independent because it let me focus on Emma, who seemed to need so much more help. I needed help too. I needed encouragement, recognition, someone to notice when I succeeded at things. I needed a mother who was interested in my inner life, not just impressed by how well I handled things on my own. What was your inner life like when you were young? I thought about that question, about the girl I'd been when no one was watching. Lonely, I said. I felt lonely a lot. I felt like I was performing being fine all the time, like if I ever admitted I needed something, it would be too much trouble. I felt like love was something I had to earn by being useful or undemanding. Mom was crying openly now, not bothering to wipe away the tears. I ruined it, she said. I ruined my relationship with you. You didn't ruin it. You just never built it. There's a difference. Can it be built now? Is it too late? I looked at this woman who had given me life, but never really seen it, who had loved me in the only way she knew how, but not in the way I needed. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not the same person I was when I was waiting for your approval. I don't need you to see me anymore, Mom. I see myself. But do you want a relationship with me? I want a relationship with the mother who can see me as I actually am. I don't want a relationship with the mother who thinks I'm fine with anything because I'm strong enough to handle it. I want to learn how to be the first kind of mother. That's going to require you to get to know me as a person, not as the daughter who doesn't need things. It's going to require you to be interested in my life for my sake, not just because it's your duty as a mother. I am interested. I want to know everything. What makes you laugh, what you worry about, what your dreams are. It felt strange being asked those questions by the woman who'd raised me. I worry about climate change, I said, testing her interest. I dream about David and me adopting kids someday, and giving them the kind of childhood where they know they're both loved and capable. I laugh at David's terrible puns and British comedy shows and my own jokes that no one else thinks are funny. She listened like she was taking notes, like she was trying to memorize a stranger she wanted to know better. "Will you tell me more?" she asked. "Will you let me try to be the mother I should have been?" "I'll let you try to be the mother you are now. I'm not interested in going backward, but I might be interested in going forward." That conversation happened 6 months ago. Mom moved back to town, into a small apartment near Emma. She started treatment for her diabetes complications, and Emma and I take turns driving her to appointments. It's strange, building a relationship with your mother when you're 37 years old. We talk on the phone twice a week now, and she asks about my work, my marriage, my garden. She remembers details from previous conversations and follows up on things I've mentioned. Emma and I are closer than we've ever been. She's angry about the fake death, but she's also grateful for what it taught her about herself. We laugh about our childhood sometimes, about the weird dynamics we thought were normal. "Do you think she's really changed?" Emma asked me last week. We were having coffee together, something we do now regularly. I think she's trying to change. I think she's finally seeing us as separate people instead of projections of what she thought we needed. "Are you glad you decided to have a relationship with her?" I considered the question. "I'm glad I'm not waiting anymore. For 37 years, part of me was always waiting for her to see me. Now I know she sees me, and I can decide what I want to do with that." "What do you want to do with it?" "I want to enjoy the time we have left. I want to let her be a grandmother to the kids David and I are planning to adopt. I want to model for those kids what it looks like to have boundaries with people you love." "Think she'll be a better grandmother than she was a mother?" "I think she'll be different, and I'll be there to make sure different means better." Last week, Mom asked me about my childhood, not about my accomplishments or my independence, but about what it felt like to be me when I was small. "I remember being very careful," I told her. "I remember watching how much attention Emma was getting and trying to figure out how to get some without being too much trouble. What would have helped? If you'd noticed when I was proud of something, if you'd asked me how I was feeling instead of assuming I was fine, if you'd treated my struggles like they mattered, even if I was handling them well." "I want to notice now," she said. "I want to celebrate your successes and care about your struggles. Is that okay?" "It's okay. But Mom, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I would have been if you'd done this 30 years ago. I'm not going to become someone who needs your approval to feel good about myself. I don't want you to need my approval. I want you to have it anyway. It's a small distinction, but it matters. I don't need my mother's love anymore, but I'm learning to receive it. I don't need her to be proud of me, but it feels good to know that she is." Emma is planning her wedding to the teacher she met at the coffee shop. This time, she's paying for it herself, with money she saved from her job. Mom offered to help, and Emma politely declined. "I want to do this myself," Emma told her. "I want to know I can." Mom was proud of that answer, which is how I know she really has changed. They asked me to be Emma's maid of honor, and I said yes. We're planning a small ceremony, nothing like the production her first wedding was. Emma wants to write her own vows, and she asked if I'd help her with them. "What do you want to promise him?" I asked her. "That I'll be a partner, not a project. That I'll take care of myself so he doesn't have to. That I'll love him as an equal." Those are good promises. I learned them from watching you and David. Yesterday, Mom called to tell me she'd been looking through old photo albums and found pictures of my spelling bee win, my debate team trophies, my high school graduation. I want to frame some of these, she said. I want to put them up in my apartment next to Emma's photos. Why? Because I'm proud of you. Because I should have celebrated these things when they happened. Because it's never too late to acknowledge your daughter's accomplishments. I felt something I hadn't expected. Not the desperate gratitude of a child finally getting recognition, but the quiet satisfaction of an adult whose worth had been acknowledged. That sounds nice, Mom. Claire? Yeah? Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for becoming someone worth giving a chance to. I'm writing this because I want people to know that it's never too late to change the relationship you have with your family, but it's also okay to accept the relationship you have instead of waiting for the one you wish you had. For 37 years, I waited for my mother to see me. When she finally did, it felt both life-changing and anticlimactic. Life-changing because being truly seen by the person who raised you is powerful, even when you're grown. Anticlimactic because I'd already learned to see myself. Emma is thriving in ways she never could have if Mom had continued to treat her like she was made of glass. I'm at peace in ways I never could have been if I'd kept waiting for validation that might never have come. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is losing what you thought you needed and discovering you can build something better on your own. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the people who couldn't give you what you needed when you were young can learn to give it to you when you're grown. Not because you need it anymore, but because love is better late than never. Mom is coming to Portland next month to see our new house and meet our adoption social worker. She wants to understand what kind of grandparent we'd like her to be. I want to get it right this time, she told me. Just love them, I said. All of them, equally, for who they are, not for who you think they should be. Can you teach me how? I can show you, I said, and you can learn. It's not the childhood I would have chosen, but it might be the family I choose now, and that feels like enough. Edit. Thank you to everyone who shared their own stories. I'm overwhelmed by how many people understand this particular kind of family dynamic. To those asking for updates, Emma's wedding is in 3 months, and she asked Mom to do a reading rather than sing. Mom cried when she realized the significance of that choice. Progress is slow, but it's real. And to those saying I should have cut Mom off entirely, I understand that impulse, and it would have been completely justified. But for me, the victory wasn't in punishing her for the past. It was in refusing to let the past define my future. She changed, I changed, and we're building something new together. That doesn't work for every family, but it's working for ours.